Greatest of evenings, mornings, or afternoons, everyone. Once again, my name is Mario A. Reed, and I'm the managing law partner for the Lumarty Law Group. This video is going to be about a revocable living trust. I'm going to talk about what is a trust, how does a trust work, and most importantly, why it's so important for you to have it. So, one of the things that lots of people consistently say is that I put my house in trust, or I put my life insurance in a trust, or I have a trust account. That is inaccurate. And the reason why is because most people think of a trust as if though it's a bucket or a box, something similar to this. They think that I create a trust and then I take my assets and I put them inside of this. But that's not the accurate way to think about a trust. The more accurate way to think about a revocable living trust is that you're creating a baby. So in this case, I have this baby, and this baby is my trust. While I'm alive, I'm going to be the father of this baby, but I'm also going to reap the benefits of whatever assets I give to the baby. So in this case, let's call this baby Living the Dream Legacy. So I had this baby and I named my baby Living the Dream Legacy. That's the name that I chose for my baby. The baby is my trust. Well, now, because this is a baby who can't do anything for itself, that's why we need a parent. The parent is called the trustee. And because this baby is just sitting here and nodding his head or shaking his head, the baby doesn't actually benefit from the house that I give it or from the bank account that I open in its name or the money that's eventually going to come from the life insurance policy. That's how a trust works. And that trust is controlled by me. I'm making all of the decisions on behalf of little living the dream. Now, lots of people are curious about what does that look like? Well, whenever it is that a trust has been created, ideally, there also was a certification of trust. And it's important that we always use the proper terms. It's not a certificate, but instead it's a certification of trust. Here in the state of Illinois, it specifies Illinois Certification of Trust, which is pursuant to Section 760 ILCS 3/1013 of the Illinois Trust Code. Whenever we're having conversations about a trust, it's governed by typically the trust code for that particular state. In the state of Illinois, that trust code is found at 760 ILCS 3 et sec, ETSEQ. So here's a look at the certification of trust for Little Living the Dream Legacy. The best way to think of this document is that it's the driver's license for Living the Dream. Here's Little Living the Dream. Now, because this is a baby, I'm never going to put a house inside of my baby. And if you always reference it as a baby, it'll help you to think about it in terms of what it is. I'm never going to put a house in a baby. I'm never going to go to the bank and say, I want to open up a baby account. I'm always going to refer to it as I transferred ownership out of my name into the name of my baby. That's the process that you undertake when you set up your trust. I'm going to go to the brokerage company, E-Trade, and I'm going to open a brokerage account in the name of my baby. I'm going to go to Bank of America, and I'm going to open up a checking account in the name of my baby. So it's no more of a trust account than it is a Mario account or a human being account. We don't call it that. We call it a checking account that's in the name of Mario Reed. And with a trust, it is a checking account that's in the name of Living the Dream Legacy. Living the Dream Legacy Revocable Living Trust also has a social security number, which is referred to as a taxpayer identification number. So when we talk about a trust, I cannot stress to you enough that we want to reference it as a baby. Everything that you would think about for a person, think about it for a baby. And in doing so, it'll help you understand exactly what's happening. Now, the real reason why we want to have a trust is because Little Living the Dream is never going to die because it's not alive. Unlike Mario, who is going to die, Living the Dream Legacy Revocable Living Trust is never going to die. But that's why I have to specify when Mario Reed dies, who do I want to take over as the successor trustee or replace me as the parent? That's what a trustee is. The trustee, the successor trustee, becomes the new parent for Little Living the Dream. I also am going to specify who do I want to benefit from the assets that I've given to Little Living the Dream. That's how a trust works. It's a very simple concept that unfortunately typically is not explained in such an easily comprehensible manner. We create a baby. While I'm alive, I'm the parent and the person who benefits. Inside of my trust agreement, I'm going to indicate who I want to take over as my successor trustee to look after Little Living the Dream and the successor beneficiary to reap the benefits of whatever assets I've assigned to Little Living the Dream. In terms of assigning assets, that's a process which is called beneficiary designations. You have to designate that you want your trust to serve as the beneficiary for the asset. In this case, I have a $100,000 life insurance policy with State Farm. This is in no way, shape, or form an advertisement for State Farm. However, if you have State Farm for your life insurance, you need to update the beneficiary to your Revocable Living Trust. And how that's done is with a beneficiary designation form. You can call your agent and say, hey, I would like for you to send me a beneficiary designation form so I can update my beneficiary to my Revocable Living Trust. Once you've submitted that paperwork, it will then list the trust as the beneficiary. Because I'm the trustee right now, it says Mario A. Reed as trustee of the Living the Dream Legacy Revocable Living Trust. And that information is what now shows up. Inside of my trust agreement, which is a separate document, it spells out if I die, who I want to take over as the successor trustee. In the event that they're not here, who I want as a second option. And if that person's not here, who I want as a third, fourth, fifth, and it just keeps on going. So one of the things that is incredibly important is that we have to connect the trust to the asset. It's not enough to just go create a trust, but you have to still connect the trust to the asset. What that also looks like is the property that you previously owned. It needs to be transferred into the name of the Revocable Living Trust. So when someone goes to the public record and they look up a particular property, which here in Cook County, you would go right to the Cook County Clerk's office. We don't have a recorder of deeds. The Clerk's office takes care of the recording in the public record. When you click on the most recently recorded deed, it's going to show whomever is the existing owner. In this case, it shows that the property was transferred from the 17807 Locust Street Revocable Living Trust into the name of the Living the Dream Legacy Revocable Living Trust. So I don't own that property at 17807 Locust Street in Lansing, Illinois, 60438. Little Living the Dream owns the property. So I did not put that property in Living the Dream. I transferred ownership into the name of Little Living the Dream Legacy Revocable Living Trust. And because I'm the trustee and the beneficiary of that trust, I get to call all the shots. I get to reap all the benefits. Many people get really confused by a trust because it's typically not explained in a very easily and comprehensible manner. That's the reason why I'm doing all of these videos that are going to be a part of the YouTube page. You can go to YouTube and search for the page of the Law Offices of Mario A. Reed, or you can type in the handle of @the Education Esquire. My goal is to educate and make sure that everyone understands exactly how this stuff works, so then you can make the most informed decision possible. Now, why does everyone need a revocable living trust? Well, the reason is simple, because we don't know when you're going to die, and we don't know what bad stuff is going to happen to you while you're alive. Let's say that I'm driving down the expressway and I cause a 10-car pileup, and the damage that comes from that 10-car pileup totals $1 million, $100,000 per vehicle. My car insurance with State Farm has a cap on it, and that cap is going to be based on whatever I chose. So when I decided what I wanted my monthly premium payment to be, I made a decision that I want to have a cap of $250,000. Well, now because my cap is 250, meaning that's the maximum that State Farm is going to cover me for, the other $750,000 now becomes my responsibility. The other drivers of those vehicles are going to sue me, and they're going to win because I caused that accident. Once they get the judgment for the $100,000 each, their attorneys are now going to try and attach those judgments to Mario Reed. So they're going to run down to the Cook County Clerk's office and they're going to record their judgment in the public record. So if Mario Reed comes into any money, let's say I win the lottery, or let's say that I get a settlement from Amazon. Well, before I get the money, the lottery or Amazon is going to check the public record and find out that I owe those drivers $100,000 each. And that money is going to get taken and given to those individuals. If I owned a home in my name, the attorney could also record the judgment against my property. And then if I decided that I wanted to refinance or I wanted to sell the property, they would get all of the funds from that judgment in the sale of the home. So if I sold the home for $200,000, $100,000 would get provided to the plaintiff who had a judgment against me. And that judgment can be revived or continue to live on forever. Every 7 years, it has to be revived, but as long as they do, it just stays there and keeps on being applicable. Whereas if that same scenario happened now, the plaintiff's attorney would not be able to record the judgment against that property because I don't own it. Little Living the Dream owns it. And Little Living the Dream did not cause the car accident. The other great part is that if I die as a part of that car accident, and that's not the great part, but if I did, now the property does not have to go through the probate court process because I already specified who I wanted to take over to handle the business and who I wanted to reap the benefits. And they get to do that outside of the probate court process. For those who are unaware, probate is a division of the circuit court for every single county throughout the United States of America. And there's a section of probate that's called decedent's estates that deals with dead people stuff. People who didn't get their affairs in order, their heirs, which is determined by law. It's not like in Game of Thrones where you choose your heir. The law dictates your heir. If you did not have your affairs in order, whoever the law says is the heir is now going to receive their respective portion and percentage of your estate based on how many heirs you have. Whereas with a trust, it doesn't matter how many heirs you have. You could have 150 heirs. If you want your house to go to one person, you specify the beneficiary, and that's who receives the asset. That's the beauty of a revocable living trust. It accomplishes your estate planning for when you die, and it accomplishes asset protection while you're alive. The other great part is you get to specify what happens with the asset. So like I mentioned in the previous video, if I wish to indicate that my daughter has to sell the property within 6 months of my passing, and then she's to take the proceeds and use those proceeds to invest in the high yield dividend fund of the stock symbol PLTY, Plady. Every month she is to receive 50% of whatever the dividend payout is for that month, and the other 50% is to be used to purchase more shares of Plady. That's the beauty of the trust. I'm dead and gone, but I'm still controlling not only the property, but the money that comes from the property from the grave. And I'm doing that because I want to create generational wealth. I want to ensure that there's so much money that's always going to be available, and it's only going to keep increasing. That is the reason why everyone needs a trust, because when you die, it doesn't matter if it's $10,000, $100,000, or $1,000,000. If you want that money to continue to live on forever, then you have to come up with a plan, and that's done with a revocable living trust. And it doesn't just have to be revocable. There are 37 different types of trust in the state of Illinois. You can use a special needs trust. You can use a qualified Medicaid. You can use a charitable trust. You can use a blind trust. You have the autonomy and discretion to decide which type of trust, but you should definitely have one, because again, you could end up dying because Amazon ran you over, and Amazon could end up giving a settlement amount of $2 million. You then get to indicate that that $2 million is to be invested in Plady, and then every month your beneficiary is to receive 50% of the gain. And I'm going to quickly talk about what that looks like in terms of actual numbers. So right now, that property at 17807 Locust Street in Lansing, Illinois, 60438, it has an estimated market value of approximately $280,000. It says it can be as much as 334. Let's go ahead and use the 334 because the house doesn't look anything like this anymore. So let's use that highest number. So Ariel sells the property and gets 334,000. For those who have never actually sold a home, you don't actually get 334,000 if you're selling it for 334. But I'm confident that that home is going to sell for more than 334,000. So again, let's just use that number. Well, what that would then mean is that Ariel would take the check and deposit the check into the dividend paying, or sorry, into the brokerage account that's in the name of E-Trade. So it's already set up. Right now, each share costs $61.52. So what's going to happen is, and I'm going to switch over to a calculator so that everyone can see that, what this computation looks like. So Ariel is going to take the $334,000 and she's going to divide that by $61.52 because that's how much each share costs. That means that Ariel's trust fund, the brokerage account that's in the name of Little Living the Dream, now has 5,429 shares of PLTY, which is a high yield dividend paying fund that pays out every month. Well, we have our number of 5,429 shares. Now I'm going to go and show you what it looks like for Ariel with her dividend paying fund. So we have the 5,429 shares. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to go to PLTY dividend announcement 2025. And I apologize because this one's not sharing it. You know, I think it might be here. So we're going to just look at stock analysis. Yep, there it is. So this shows all of the dividends dating back to November, which is when this fund first started paying dividends. So this month, come tomorrow, PLTY is going to pay out a dividend that's $7.04 per share. $7.04 per share. That's how astronomical of a dividend it is. So remember, we took the 334,000 and we divided that by $61.62, or sorry, 52 cents, which is the current price. And that gave us the 5,429 shares. This Friday, YieldMax is paying out $7.04 per share. So I'm going to show you what that translates to. We're going back to the calculator, and now we're going to multiply 5,429 shares times $7.04 per share. This month, Ariel's dividend check would be $38,221. But remember, in the trust agreement, I set up the instruction that she doesn't get all of that. She gets half of it. So we're going to divide that by 2. So in the first month after I passed away and the house has been sold, Ariel is able to receive $19,110. The other $19,110 is then used to purchase more shares of PLTY. So we're just going to divide that same amount by $61.52. And that means Ariel's trust fund, the brokerage account set up in the name of Little Living the Dream, now has purchased another 310 shares. And that gets added to the 5,429. So now her trust fund, the brokerage account set up in the name of Little Living the Dream, now owns 5,739 shares. And let's say next month they pay out a similar dividend. So all we do is we just multiply this times $7.04. And this month, the next month, Ariel gets $40,000 as dividends. We divide that in 2, and now she's got $20,000 that month. And we just keep repeating the cycle forever. When Ariel passes, her child steps in and then starts to carry on the expectations, and it just keeps going forever and ever. This is the incredible power of the trust. It allows you to create a plan that's going to create generational wealth, not just for your children, not just for your grandchildren, but for every single child or person who comes along in your bloodline, or whoever you want to be the beneficiary. They don't have to be your bloodline. They could be a companion. They could be a good friend of yours. You can set up the trust for whomever you want. And by doing so, it ensures that whoever you want to benefit is able to do so forever. The trust can be the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. Remember, you saw the whole life policy that I have, which is $100,000. There are several more life insurance policies. So let's say that all the assets come to $1 million. We're just going to do the same math. $1 million in assets are now in the name of Little Living the Dream, and all of those funds are to be taken and used to purchase PLTY. We divide that by $61.52 per share. That's 16,254 shares. We then multiply that times $7.04. And in the first month of Ariel's dividend paying funds, $114,000 is what was generated with her brokerage account that's in the name of her little brother, Little Living the Dream. We divide that by 2, and this is how much she gets in month 1, $57,000. And this just keeps going and growing forever. So many people think that a trust fund was created because somebody already had millions of dollars. Wrong. I'm creating a trust fund and I don't have $1 million. However, there's $1 million worth of assets which are going to flow to the name of Little Living the Dream. And because of the plan that I've created, there's going to be perpetual wealth that keeps getting larger and larger, and it grows so incredibly fast. In a year's time, that $1 million is going to be multiplied and grown to likely $3 million just by taking this strategy and approach and having a clear plan set up for the successor trustee to follow for the benefit of your beneficiaries. So I know that that's a lot of information, and I know that a lot of people are curious and have lots of questions. One of the things that I'm hoping is that you'll put comments under these videos, and then from time to time, I'll get a chance to go back and I'll answer the comments, whether I answer directly to the individual or I create separate videos and content that talk about the answers to the questions from previous videos. So again, the goal of these videos is to educate. Does our office offer estate planning? At the current time we do, but it's not going to be for much longer because I'm going to be retiring thanks to these funds like Plady, Misty, and so many others. But more than anything, I want for everyone to get their affairs in order, and I want for you to do it in a meaningful, deliberate, and informed manner. So that's why these videos are here, and they're going to continue, and they're only going to get better. We're going to have graphics and all kinds of flashy editing once it is that I've retired and been able to figure out a company that's able to help me accomplish all that. But for now, I want you to have the information, and I don't want for it to have to come in a slick package to prevent me from giving it to you. If by chance you're interested in getting your affairs in order and it's before October of 2025 that you're watching this video, you're welcome to reach out. But again, this is not a solicitation. This is in no way, shape, or form an advertisement. It's exclusively for educational purposes. So whomever you use, whether it's our firm or any other firm, just please get it done because that's the priority. Every adult over the age of 18 should have a revocable living trust. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, a thousandaire, or a hundredaire, or a singleaire. You should have a plan in place that ensures that whatever you want to happen with your assets happens, and it happens in a way that creates generational wealth. I want to thank you for tuning in yet again to the second episode of What is a Revocable Living Trust? How does it work? And why do I need one? Looking forward to continuing to create content. Hopefully you find it to be helpful. If so, please feel free to like and share the page. If not, that's okay as well. As long as somebody's benefiting, then it's all worth its while. Thanks so much. Have a great one and enjoy.